Welcome to Center Stage. On this program, we're going to talk with Jeff Rude. He has been coaching and playing ice hockey for over 16 years around the United States and Europe. He has spent all that time researching and gathering tools and techniques for mental excellence and improved performance in sports. He's a certified neurolinguistic programming practitioner, performance coach, facilitator, and value specialist. And he's on the line joining us from Charlottesville. I think he's actually... Jeff, are you actually in the hockey rink right now?
Yes, I've got skates on my feet. They moved our ice time up by a half hour, so I'm sitting in the kitchen where they prepare birthday parties, and my team's walking into the locker room to get their equipment on.
Well, I wonder if maybe you could skate around and bring out a cake or something.
Exactly. I'll be cooking while we're speaking, so if I sound distracted, it's only that.
In addition to all this, you also co-host a radio show, Opportunity Radio in Charlottesville, right?
Absolutely, we do.
And so what do you normally talk about on the show?
Well, it's what we call Opportunity Radio. It's health, wealth, and wisdom for Charlottesville and its surrounding areas. And funny enough, we're on a conservative talk show station, 107.5 in our area. And it's kind of funny because it's kind of the opposite. You know, you listen to a lot of those angry talk show hosts. And what we're talking about is, you can complain about what's wrong in the world, but really, whenever there's something wrong, there's something right as well.
Why do you think that is? Why is it easier to focus on all the problems in the world and not the solution?
I think it's just built into us, honestly. That's a big subject. I could probably refer you to a couple books. I don't know if I'm ready to tackle that one with hockey skates on today.
So now, you went and studied NLP, and you used those techniques in your coaching, and you've come up with an interesting training program. Tell me about mental hockey.
Yeah, well, what I have is I put together a program called Breakout Hockey. It's an audio program. It's kind of like a 4-part program that it helps you with the actual training of your mind versus just the physical training or the typical types of motivation or pep talk type of coaching that you would get from reading other books on mental preparation or the kinds of inspiration quote that you would get from a coach in the middle of a locker room. So it kind of follows a lot of the neurolinguistic programming principles that we learned in our NLP class. And then I've been reading a number of other books. I've just been voraciously reading on not only hockey, but mental performance in sports and all of that. And I've taken the best of everything that I possibly could and combined it into a program that will help you not only know that, for example, you're supposed to focus when you're on the ice, but will literally put you in the state of focus when you're on the ice. It's one thing to talk about the fact that, we need to be composed when we're going into the zone with the puck, but it's an entirely different thing to be composed and to put yourself automatically into that state. And so there's a lot of secrets. I've kind of just connected the dots and tried to put together something that makes sense.
How is your life before and after you learned NLP, and how do you apply those techniques to better your performance and the performance of others?
Oh, my. Well, I'll tell you what. I guess I went into the NLP class originally kind of a little bit doubtful because, you kind of walk in and you've read books about it and you've listened to Anthony Robbins' audio programs or things like that, and you kind of get an idea. You think you know what you're talking about when you walk in the door. And in the first 10 minutes, half the group is in tears because you're starting to actually touch the emotional portion of things versus the intellectual portion of things, where you're starting to actually feel it and be it rather than just talk about it. Well, throughout the entire class, I can say that I found a lot of different areas. I guess literally I found places in my body where I could find personal power, if you will. And this is I'm not coming from one of those places. I mean, I don't go to a psychic regular. I'm a very feet on the ground type of person. I do believe in wild and crazy ideas, but if you don't see real world results and real value and real worth, there's no point to it. But I can tell you from the very first day from that class, it twisted my vision and what type of control I felt I had over my own mind. By the time I was halfway through the class, I was itching to get back out on the ice because all of the things that I was dealing with beforehand, fear of competition. I mean, I used to have problems with getting sick before a game because I was so afraid of getting out and having to compete against people. It was gone. Composure in front of the net because I play defense, and so one of the things that's very difficult is if the puck lands on the ice right in front of the goalie, the defenseman who's not composed will just take it and dump the puck out, shoot it out of the way, and generally will inevitably give that away to the other team, which is a bad thing, right? Mm-hmm. I stopped that. I'm able to now control the puck, to be composed, and it took me from being a middle-of-the-road player, literally in the time that I was there doing the NLP class, I was able to put myself in the position, sitting in that hotel conference room, and I was able to put myself in the position and go through those states, managing my states of how I should be on the ice. The next time I was on the ice, I was the best person there playing against the exact same people. And that's really what I talk about in the Breakout Hockey program, is it doesn't matter how much physical and ice time that you get, that type of practice, everybody else is doing that too. The only thing that's going to give you the edge is the part that most people disregard or intellectually say, yeah, I understand that. If you truly commit yourself to it, it will make changes. And every single person that has used this, that I've been coaching with, has seen the same exact type of results. And we're talking within 5 to 10 minutes of just working with them.
If you look at the history of NLP, when John Grinder and Richard Bandler, when they worked together on this process, it was to model success. How do people do success? And it's an interesting quote from John Grinder. He says, it gives you a specific set of strategies to unconsciously assimilate precisely the differences that make the difference between this genius, which would be an expert player, let's say, and an average performer in the same niche. It is an accelerated learning strategy. It's a mapping of tacit to explicit knowledge. It's a program which allows you to explore one extreme of human behavior, namely excellence. And it's that whole notion of modeling. Tell me about that shift in your mental state. You go from being terrified and throwing up before you play a game to mastering that. Who did you model? Who did you model your performance after, that you could step into that state of excellence?
Funny enough, there's two parts to that. There's two answers to that question, and this is what's so powerful about it. The first part is one of the major parts that I modeled was myself. There are times I have experiences of being empowered, different types of experiences, and so one of the major questions that we were asked during that class is, what type of state would be helpful to you in this situation, right? Mm-hmm. You would go into that, and it's like, okay, well, for me, I'm not a serious guy. I'm a goofy guy. So how should I confront competition? How should I confront the mean-looking guy across the ice from me? Well, I probably shouldn't confront it by trying to be the most serious guy on the ice. And you kind of get the hint, and you start saying, well, wait a second, I can be a goofy, phenomenal player out there, somebody that people can't even handle because I'm such a strange force out on the ice. And on the other side, I modeled one of my favorite players, two of my favorite players, oddly enough. One of them plays for L.A. Congratulations to Dustin Brown on leading his team to victory. And Ryan Smith, two very strong, forceful, polite players, because I don't want to be a mean guy out on the ice. I don't want to be somebody who's regarded as somebody you don't want to play with. I want to be a tough, grinder, hard-nosed player. And so I would watch videos of them on YouTube. And I would say, okay, well, what exactly is it that they're doing? And I would watch them in their games and how they were playing. And I would say, okay, well, if he's doing this type of thing, next time I'm out on the ice, this is what I want to do. So I would have my wife, Joanna, who took the class with me, put me into a state, lead me through the pattern, help me to model, the pro model, what it is that they were doing, or just one thing that I noticed that they were doing that I could attribute to my new play. And lo and behold, without fail, every single time I was able to master it the next time I was out on the ice. Now, granted, it took a couple times trying, so it wasn't like this magic wand, but it was just this ability to learn, just like you said in your quote, to pattern and learn the successful state. It's incredible.
Is it true that hockey is 80% mental?
Oh, yeah, at least.
Explain that to me. So 20% would be actual physical ability, and then the 80% is mental.
Exactly. Now, as far as the actual numbers, that's generally the Pareto's Law platitude that we use, that it's 80% mental. I don't know if there's any kind of science that you could actually hold to it, because you're dealing with the mental side of things, and it's like, how do you actually measure it in coffee spoons and afternoons type of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you that once you're strong, if you're the strongest guy out on the ice, and if you're the best skater, and you've got somebody who's equally as strong of a skater and who's equally as strong physically and has equal skills with the puck, you put them both out on the ice at the same time, and you just weigh one of them down with a mental complex that he is disempowered mentally, the other one will dominate the other player. And we see it materialize in the NHL all of the time, where you have star hockey players that choke for seasons on end and never are able to exit, versus players who are able to have one or two bad games and are able to turn themselves around and have a breakout season, which is why I call it the Breakout Hockey program. It's the ability to break out of whatever it is, whatever plateau you hit, and reach a whole new level. And I think that that's how you can see the everyday evidence of hockey being 80% mental. And I think it holds true for just about every physical activity.
Well, yeah, because I used to play baseball, and I'd strike out, and then all of a sudden I'd strike out once, and then I'd strike out again, and then all of a sudden I'm in a slump. And then it's hard to get out of that, which leads to this second point that you talk about in your literature, that it only takes two bad experiences to negatively affect your mental game. Now, tell me about that. So you have the bad experiences, but then what do you do to counteract those, or do the bad experiences just continue to build on one another? So it goes from being a brick to now you've built an entire fortress of bad experience.
Exactly. I never played baseball again once I realized that pitches could reach 90 miles an hour. So I've got a similar baseball story to where I never got back out on a baseball diamond again after I tried out for high school baseball. And similarly, I had a similar experience, and thanks to NLP, I think I was able to treat it as just a one-time experience. This year, I turned 34, and I went and I did an hour and a half of a kickboxing class with a friend of mine, and then went out and played an hour and a half of hockey. Just to prove a point to myself, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm not getting old. Well, that night, somebody slew-footed me, as in they pulled my feet out from underneath me, and I fell backwards and smashed my head on the ice, with the helmet on, thankfully, so hard that I couldn't stand up for about a minute, which is a pretty big deal. I could still remember who I was and all of that, and I was dizzy and had recurring headaches for about 2 months, which is normally attributed to a concussion. Those are the types of experiences that would have normally set me back. I would have been afraid to skate backwards again. I would have been so afraid of making the wrong type of move and hurting myself that I could have turned that into a complete roadblock. I had Joanna, once again, because I do believe that NLP is something that you can do to yourself, but it's way more effective if you have somebody, a coach, who can mentally guide you through it, almost as though you can self-hypnotize yourself, but it's much more effective if you have somebody who can lead you through it themselves, so that way you can let go of the steering wheel and truly enjoy the scenery, if you will. Mm-hmm. I had Joanna lead me through some exercises, and within the next time back out on the ice, my fear was gone. I didn't have any of those problems with my fear of hitting my head or anything, and guess what? It hasn't materialized. I haven't hurt myself. So it's really a fantastic means for turnaround as well, in terms of bad experiences and keeping yourself from having them, and treating that failure as feedback instead of a sign for something.
I love this concept of being in the zone. You've heard of that phrase, right? Being in the zone. Uh-huh. And it's where a person just behaves the way that they behave doing an act. They're not self-analytical. They're not thinking about their process. They're just doing it. And you have this other thing you talk about in your literature, don't think, imagine, really imagine. Tell me about that process, and is that part of the preparation to, it's like your mental homework. You do it, and then you just are in the zone?
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. To start off with it, I really treat it in terms of kind of what we talked about earlier, with the difference between the intellectual understanding of something and the emotional understanding of something. If you have never lost your father, for example, you don't know how to truly understand what the sadness is of losing a father. right? You can intellectually understand how sad it is for the other person and say, gosh, I really understand you're really sad. But that's intellectually understanding it. When your father dies, that's when you understand the true sadness of losing your father. For example, we could also talk about something a little less serious, like if you've never truly bit into a lemon, you don't know what it is to actually bite into a lemon. But when I say, and that kind of is the transition into this truly created, it's one thing for me to say, hey, Mark, remember the last time you bit into a lemon? Wasn't that funny? So intellectually we remember it. But if I were to have you close your eyes and go back to that time, that the last time that you licked the lemon or bit into a lemon, and lead you through the visual and the auditory and those kinesthetic and the way that it smelled and the way that it tasted, and truly recreate that event, your salivary glands will begin to produce saliva, again, just as though you were eating a lemon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what I'm saying. Is it's one thing to think about going out and scoring a goal in hockey. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go out and score 3 goals. But it's a whole other thing to create the scenario in your mind and go out and put your body into that position. I'm also into boxing, and I'll find myself as I'm doing visualizations of my boxing moves that my arms will actually start twitching as though I'm trying to jab while I'm sitting and having somebody lead me through an exercise. It's that powerful. And if you can put yourself into that type of state, imagine if I were to say, all right, Mark, this time I'm going to turn you into an invincible hockey player for this game. I need you to be invincible and faster than you've ever skated, and I'm going to lead you through an exercise that's going to make you that way. I can pretty much guarantee that it will be your fastest and most invincible game you've ever played, because we've already created it in your mind. Your mind already knows how to do it. Now all your body's got to do is follow the lead.
What, when you're doing this, when you're out coaching, do you do this with your players and your teammates? Yeah. And when you first introduced this to your teammates or your players, what was their response?
Well, I kind of also have another statistic that I haven't really put into my literature, but I'd say that about 2% of the people actually buy into it. I don't try to force it on anybody, because you have to be a willing participant to actually make it work. So if you're going to walk in and say this is a bunch of ballyhoo and nonsense, and I don't want to, I'll give it a try, but we'll see how it goes, that's not true commitment. And so I've had the players that have come to me and said, look, I'm actually having a problem. I would like your help. Or, hey, oh my, the lead goalie didn't show up. I have to start the entire game, and it's against the best team in the league. I can lead you through a 5-minute exercise. I can tell you that particular scenario happens. I'm looking at the goalie right now who, in 5 minutes of working through, we understood that the power for him to be a good goaltender didn't lie within his legs, where he traditionally thought that it was, through submodalities and understanding what the submodalities that he possessed were. The true power that he felt was in his glove. He went out that next game and got his first collegiate win. And this is a guy that generally doesn't believe in himself, but he was at a point where he had no choice but to try. And on the other hand, I've got players who come up to me and say, hey, I see that you've got this new Breakout Hockey program. I want to try it out. And, of course, I don't charge them because they're college students. And they're my guinea pigs in my case studies. So I've got some success case studies, and I'm hoping to build some more this year.
What other areas has your life changed since practicing NLP?
Oh, my. I guess it'd be easier to ask which areas have not changed. Everything from my professional side to my personal side. Joanna and I, we both took the class together, and, married couples are going to argue, but we have found some really successful ways of handling our little disagreements. We have found for myself and my personal side, just in terms of if I wake up having a bad day, I can recognize that I'm having a bad day, and I can choose to whether pull myself out of it or not. Professionally, it's a long story. That would be a whole other side for just a whole other interview, but I work in facilitation as well. I lead groups of experts through strategies and things, and I'm probably one of the younger folks in the industry to do this type of work.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, I guess to keep a long story short, I've kind of shot to a higher area of recognition as being one of the top in the industry after having taken the NLP course, just because I'm using these NLP things to sell concepts, to work with teams, to understand team dynamics better, to where I get into a room full of very serious people and am able to I honestly have a hard time explaining it. People can see it externally, but I can just tell you that when I walk out of the room at the end of that week of the work, it's like everybody's friends. It's been magical, which is not what I experienced before. Before it was just, okay, another project, another day, another dollar, and now people are affected by the end of that week, and that's truly, truly impressive. And I have a hard time communicating it because other people are asking me, what is it that you're doing that's giving us this great feedback? And all I can do is say, here's a book on NLP. This is just the beginning.
Right. Well, Jeff, good luck with your game tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's a practice, so that'll be good. We've got games coming up in October, but if you want to keep track of our wins and losses, uvahockey.com if you want to check out and see how we're doing. We play against teams like Georgetown, Duke, University of North Carolina, folks like that, and we've got some phenomenal new kids. All of them are very smart. We're a very hard school to get into, so number one challenge is to get into the school. Number two is to get onto the team, and I'm just really excited. This is my first year actually being the head coach of the team, so I'm expecting big things of myself and the teams.
Well, best of luck. Have a great season. And we've been talking with Jeff Rude, and if you'd like more information about his Breakout Hockey program, you can go to www.hockeybreakout.com. Just a reminder, you can hear Center Stage live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on KXLU Los Angeles, 88.9 FM. We're also streaming live on the internet at kxlu.com. Until next time, this is Mark Gordon, and I'll see you Center Stage.